I was just overwhelmed. I honestly, I didn't think it was going to be a big ceremony like that. I didn't think Beth, my old lecturer, was going to have such lovely words for me. It kind of caught me off guard, but very proud. It was so great. It was like beautiful because my graduation was in the Barbican, which is huge. And that one was really intimate, but like just such a lovely setting. And you could see everybody, you could see their faces. And it just brought back so many memories of people coming on stage and collecting their degrees or doctorates and things like that. And I just thought it was so lovely. I remember all of it like it was yesterday. It was so weird talking to Beth on email because she said, when did you graduate? And I was like, and I literally had to count back and I was like, oh my God, it was 17 years ago. I felt like an adult then and I kind of feel the same age now, if you know what I mean, even though I was just a kid back then. Sealing Wales was just amazing and I made friends for life that I still know now. My best friends were at university. I've got loads of fond memories of the lecturers as well. Brian Cathcart was one of my favourites. Beth, of course, was one of my favourites. Beth was like very bubbly and fun and like encouraging. I suppose our degree was one of those degrees where you needed to be social. So if you were a little bit shy, they were the best people to kind of get it out of you. I used to be part of the university rowing team, but only for like my first year, because as soon as I got a job in the nightclub, it just didn't, you couldn't tally up. You'd be like working till 4 a.m. and then getting up and going rowing at 6, which I'd never managed to do. I really remember when we were all finishing in that last year, when we were all working on the River, the newspaper. It was such a great hub in the newsroom. Like we'd spend all day in there and we'd go out and I'd cover the Levi Belfield trial, which to this day, God, that was one of the most intense things I've ever done, and including my career. It was so scary to cover it, and the content that was coming out of it was quite scary, and you really wanted to do it justice and make sure that everything was correct. I met so many other journalists that I hounded for work experience and stayed in touch with, and it taught me quite a few lessons about, oh my goodness, contempt of court, not publishing things before you're supposed to, and just being as respectful as possible to content that was very, very sensitive. You almost felt like a proper journalist because you were going out and doing the work, and it was all down to you, and it was, you were the one responsible for what came out, and then you'd see your name in text. It made you really proud. It was a great springboard, I think, into the proper professional world. Brian Cathcart was a real big favourite in our university. Everybody loved him because he was so suave, but also because he was doing the job, he was like a role model that you had kind of instantly that you knew was there. And I actually have stayed in contact with Brian, but I've watched his career closely, and I just think everything he's done with Hacked Off and the way that he's holding the press accountable. That's really inspiring for me. You know what though? It was lovely to see Beth today. She was always such a ball of energy, and she just said to me that we were joking about how speaking on stage at something like this is completely alien even to like people who do it for a living, and Beth was saying her job, she can literally get out of bed and think, what am I going to do today while she's on the bus, and then deliver it brilliantly, which you get to that point in TV or radio probably more so because you kind of get really well versed in just babbling on. But when you get on stage and do something like this today, I was like so nervous. It's so completely different. Do you know, one thing I wish I'd have said when I did my speech back there, which I really have kept with me, is just the idea of being respectful to people. And I'm so aware of how people treat me, and that's why I'm aware of how I treat other people. And I think throughout my career, when I went through as a runner, I remember how kind people were or how perhaps impatient people were too. And it's made me really respectful of everyone coming through at every level. That's why I think it's so important to start at the bottom and not to try and rush it. Like really learn every role, because then you'll be so respectful of those people that are working behind the camera when you eventually, if you do make it in front of the camera and that's what you want to do, you know their time constraints, you know their pressures as well. So you're not kind of the big I am of, I'm the most important person here. There's everybody has a part of the cog. Gabby Logan was always the number one for me. I always used to watch Question of Sport with the whole family as well, and we loved it. So weirdly, Ali McCoist was always a favourite in our household. And then when I got to work with him, I was like, oh, he's just the best. My dad used to listen to TalkSport all the time in the car, and I've got to be honest, when I was younger, I didn't appreciate it. But then when I got older, it was so familiar to me, and Alan Brazil and his voice was so familiar to me. I do think that's where a lot of like my familiarity and my love for sports come from. Do you remember you could be a press packer for Newsround if you applied? And I applied about 3 or 4 times and I never got to be a press packer, but I don't know why that appealed to me. I think I just really enjoyed it, and I used to watch presenters like Fern Cotton. I used to watch her when she was really young. She got into presenting quite young, didn't she? And I would notice the difference between her and whoever she was next to. And there was something really natural about her and really likeable. And not to be a downer on who she was working with, but there was a marked difference. She just had something. And I always used to think, what is that? Isn't that great? And I remembered that from a really young age. And then I wanted to be a writer. I loved writing. I loved creative writing. But my work experience in newspapers sort of put me off a little bit. But then TV was just like this world of colour that was opened up to me, and I just thought, wow. And that's where the bug really started, I think. My mum was reminding me last night when we were talking about the speech, and I was like, I don't know what to say. And she said, do you remember when you made, I called it Off the Ocky, and it was like this little YouTube series because I was working on darts at the time. And it was probably just like my last try, because I'd tried so many different ways to get into presenting. I did like a couple of screen tests for Sky Sports News, and oh my God, it was the worst thing I've ever done. And it made me, A, realise I don't think I can read properly, because I was like, how do I read this autocue? I couldn't do it. And then B, I was like, it knocked my confidence so far back that I don't think I tried for another year. I was in production at the time and I was fine. I had a good stable job, but I was like sort of trying to knock on the door. But those were the best things that ever happened to me, because I'm not a news presenter at all, and I hate autocue to this day. It forced me into a place where I had to think outside of the box, and I think it's been the best thing. If you can find something that is better for your personality, if you know what I mean. I also have a terrible memory, so I was like, I can't read autocue and I can't remember my lines. So I kind of made a career out of being a bit of a bumbling idiot at the beginning, and luckily people were kind to me. But then I went and tried to do radio because I lost a show that Sky decided someone else is going to present it, and I was like, oh God, am I going to have to go back from the beginning? And one of my friends was working at TalkSport at the time, and he said, it was Max Rushton, do you want to have a go? So I went and did a demo. Radio was as far from what I thought I could achieve as anything. I thought I'd be better on telly, and it was the best thing in the world. It kind of teaches you how to be fluid, and I was never fluid in my speech or anything. And I was nervous. I honestly don't understand why I thought I wanted to be a presenter, because it was everything I hated, like speaking on camera, trying to have a good memory, trying to be well polished and things like that. And then TalkSport was just this little gang of like reprobates, and I really fit in well there. And then it gave me enough confidence to go and do everything else, and everything else kind of felt easy after that. There's so many sliding doors moments. You can also kind of, like the age thing in telly was quite a concern for me, because I don't think I really broke through till I was about 29, maybe nearly 30. And I remember back in the day thinking, if I haven't made it by 25, then I'm too old. And then you get there and you're like, oh, I'm not old. And then you kind of go another decade in it and think, oh, I'm still not old. So I think young people are very harsh, aren't they? They kind of think, oh my God, by the time you're 30, you're ancient. But yeah, when you're in it, you do have to be quite resilient. But again, all those lessons are so valuable, and you wouldn't be a good presenter if you hadn't had the knocks. I remember in Qatar, it was one of the most amazing finals, France, Argentina. And do you remember how amazing Messi was, and then Mbappe? And it was kind of like the master and the pupil at their best. And I was working with Karen Carney, and we looked at each other and we were like, this is amazing. So things like that are great. I don't know, like moments like this as well, they're right up there, because I haven't cried at an event before, but I was very emotional today. So yeah, lots of different things mean a lot to you. Do you know, I like the old school people. Like, I like Ray Parlour, and it took me ages to meet Ray Parlour, and I'd almost ticked off all the Invincibles, but Ray was always my favourite, and David Seaman as well. And when I met those two, and Alan Brazil and Ali McCoist, I was just like, this is great. I'm so lucky, like, I've got to interview Ronaldo before, and he was really funny. Never Messi, that would be a box ticked if I managed to do that, although I don't think his English is that good. Yeah, I think people like that, you're really spoiled, because week in, week out, when you work in the Premier League and then the Champions League, you get to interview these absolute superstars. Like, I only interviewed Erling Haaland for the first time the other day, and he was great. Jude Bellingham was amazing. When I first interviewed him, I was with Rio Ferdinand, and as he walked off, I looked at Rio, and Rio looked at me, and I thought, someone's got to say it. And I was like, he speaks better than you do, Rio. And I was like, you could be a pundit now. But even Rio agreed. He was like, what the hell? Some of these little superstars that are young, you meet them and you're just like, wow, you're just bowled over by them. Media training is like really important for young footballers, and they want to protect themselves as much as possible. But we do live in an age where our media love to tear down. They build up and then they tear down. I don't know if that's an English thing or what. There's so much panic. I watched it happen with Jude Bellingham. His rise was so quick. Everyone in the media was looking at it thinking, when's the fall going to happen? It's inevitable. They'll find something and then the fall will happen. And I find that so disappointing, because I think that we kind of have a responsibility, especially with young athletes, to protect them and not to try and trip them up. So I'm a lot more gentle with some players. With managers, when I used to be a reporter, I hated it, because you would have to go in there and ask stupid questions and probing questions. And honestly, like, if something bad just happened to me that I'd planned all week for, and it went terribly, and then someone was like, why did that happen? I would lose my head with them. So I don't blame them. I used to almost go in there like this and be like, how was that? And then just, you almost wanted to, like, I don't know, put a shield up or something. Maybe personality is not the right word, but you have different tones with different people. You have to do that to get the best out of them, because not everybody is going to react the same way to your one style. Gabby's got a book out, and there's a couple of chapters in Gabby's book that will blow your mind, the way that she was treated back in her early days. I didn't experience anything even half like that. Like, I think when I stepped into the industry, it is now still a little bit like that, but because there were so many people like Claire Balding and Gabby Logan and like paving the way ahead of me, I think I had it easy in comparison. When I started working for ITV, we were working on the Women's International, so all the England games. We went to St Mary's Stadium, and it was something like England, North Macedonia or something like that. And there were so few people in the crowd, we had to angle the camera towards the busiest looking stand. You want to promote a sport. A lot of people out there want to hate women's sport, so we didn't want to give them any kind of leverage, anything to kind of get their teeth stuck into. So, and also you're selling a product, aren't you? And you want it to look as best as it can. And then honestly, within like 2 or 3 years, the Lionesses had won the Euros once, they'd gone to the World Cup final, they'd gone to another Euros final, they'd won another one. And you look back at it now and you're like, they're selling out Wembley Stadium, which is incredible. And when you go there, the atmosphere is so enormous. It's the same as the men's, but you don't get like Mexican waves in the men's game, so it's a little bit less, it's a little bit less tribal, yeah. I hate the Mexican waves. I'm like, focus on the game. But yeah, the difference is enormous in such a short space of time. But when I was younger, I never looked at Gabby and loved her because she was a woman. It didn't come into my kind of psyche, and I think that's what it needs to be. Like when we were on TalkSport, we always used to want to talk about women's sport organically, so that people didn't get their backs up, and so that anyone listening that did like women's sport would just hear it naturally. You don't want to shove things down people's throats. You just, if you don't make a big deal of things, no one else will. And we just wanted to be organic about it and talk about it because we're interested. And I genuinely was working on it, so I knew all the subplots and the sub-stories. And I honestly think that's the best way to do it with women's sport. I always say, like, if you don't, some people hate golf, some people hate F1. You don't have to enjoy every sport. You don't have to watch every sport. But you can be respectful that other people want to follow it. And the sort of numbers that we get for women's football now on ITV are enormous. I think always don't be afraid to try new things, because there's so many jobs in journalism. Just because you did a journalism degree, mine was print journalism, so just because I wanted to be a writer doesn't mean it doesn't open other doors for you and you can't try those things. And also work experience is so important, because I completely changed my entire trajectory in 2 weeks. I was like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. So you kind of like, you can't be fearful of changing course or making mistakes. Be respectful to everybody, because you never know who you're going to meet on the way up. Probably more than half of the doors that have opened for me, I think, have been more about my attitude than my talent. They have to be, because there's no chance at the beginning of my career did I actually have that much talent. Like, it's not, it just wasn't there. It was very rough, and people have to believe in you to give you the chance. You're not good at everything immediately. If you are, wow. But like, most people don't. They need to make mistakes and they need to practice things. And the only way to get better at something like presenting is you just got to get in front of the camera and do it, and you're going to be bad. So I think you have to kind of be brave enough to make those mistakes and just roll with the punches. And especially now that social media, every mistake you make will live forever on the internet, and you just kind of have to go. What makes the headlines today is tomorrow's chip paper, luckily. Although it does come up again in a few months' time. This is the time you can fail. You know, you don't have too many responsibilities when you've just graduated. You'll acquire them very quickly. But it's probably the best time to go out there and try and fail and try again and try new things. And just believe that you can be brave enough to do it, I think. Thanks, guys.